Hello, one and all. Welcome back to the 39 Days podcast with Alex and Andrew. Alex, hello.
How we doing?
What's going on, everyone? Of course, I'm Andrew. We're here talking about season 42, episode 4. Hopefully, a short episode tonight. We're at a point in the season where you're going to have to get an elimination every week just because that's the nature of the show. But correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, if you're feeling differently than me, but I feel like the strategy in the game and where they're going has kind of stagnated a little bit, and we're kind of expecting things to pick up at a merge scenario, and we're just not quite there yet.
I would say, to go off your point, I would say the strategy so far is non-existent. Like, this episode in particular we basically saw, to just kind of summarize the entire tribal council, we basically saw everyone kind of turn on Swati because they realized she had been playing every single side. She had been telling everyone that they were number one in her books, and they took her out because of it. There was no strategic thinking behind it. She was making everyone paranoid, so they just took her out.
I will say, from a strategic standpoint, someone who's playing both sides is a very dangerous player, and someone
which is
create
true.
A bunch of they can wreak havoc in your strategy. So yeah. I understand her elimination this week, and of course I'm obviously upset. I think she was like my first or second selection in our fantasy draft, so that was a big hit for me. But yeah, I understand why they voted her out, but I even tweeted out during the episode that I really thought she was playing years above her age. She says she was 20 just for the stigma of the teenager, but I think she's actually 19 at the time of recording. And I just felt like she was playing older and mature and a really savvy game just because she was playing the role of Switzerland, right? So not taking any side, but it turns out she wasn't stuck in the middle. She was actually playing both ends against the middle. And that's one of the worst things you can do in this show.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, with her tribe, she's the only one that actually has been playing the game. You look at the rest of her tribe, you have Roxroy, who is just your classic, guy that gets on everyone for not doing everything his way or the highway.
He's the dad. He's the dad.
He's the dad of the group. Yeah,
he's a stay-at-home dad in real life, and he comes in with a hard work hard mentality.
Yeah,
and he's just mimicked his home life on the beach, which there's no. I'm not going to say anything that there's any problem with that, but
no, there's no problem with it.
It's a kind of vanilla gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very old school type of gameplay.
Yeah.
You have Drea, who has a couple of advantages, but she's done absolutely nothing but sit back and watch everything else unfold since she got them.
Yeah, I've been disappointed with Drea because she has 2 advantages. And I just feel like she's not leveraging them enough, not doing a lot to advance herself in the game. Now, of course, if she makes it to a merge with those advantages both in hand, she could be a dangerous player.
She could be very dangerous,
fast. But right now, I feel like she's not doing enough. And maybe that's by design, right? I don't want to burn my advantages to be a strong pre-merge player. I get that.
Well, and I don't blame her on that, because you never want to be in the position where you have to use your advantages before the merge to the point where I don't think we've seen a lot of advantages played before merges, unless you're talking about Winners at War. I know there's a bunch, but even last season, not that much, and there was a lot of advantages put in play last season. But yeah, I think she's just kind of sat back and hasn't really done anything. And to your point of she hasn't leveraged her advantages, she's gotten so far along with that she has them basically being leveraged against her, because Tori was going around.
Her name's been come up.
Tori's been going around telling everyone that she has the extra vote.
Right. Which, look, Tori, I saw something I didn't like in her this week. She kind of seemed like she was a little paranoid, a little neurotic the first few episodes. And then tonight, or should I say tonight, but this week's episode, specifically a tribal council, she kind of flipped. She's very well spoken and she got very manipulative. Yeah. It's the kind of thing where I don't know if you have any experience with this in your own personal life. I certainly do, where you may be in the right in an argument, but the other person you're let's say, disputing with is more well spoken. They're better at crafting an argument. They can make it seem like they're right, even if like factually, like they have no basis behind their argument. I feel like she kind of filled that role perfectly this week.
Yeah,
and it's scary because that's someone who, if they don't catch it, she could go really far and just like gaslight people the whole week, like the whole season, just make it seem like everyone else is in the wrong. She's doing the things the right way, even though she's the problem. Like you can go very deep in the game. As long as you don't become a big villain like a Russell Hantz type and they don't catch up to it at the end. But I wasn't expecting that from her. And then I know you had some strong feelings on Romeo, who I believe was your first selection in our draft, either him or Jonathan, right? And he showed a little bit of an ugly side this week as well.
He showed, the difference is Tori showed that she can kind of speak her way out of any scenario. And we've seen that more than once so far, because she was on the chopping block in the premiere where it was between her and Zach, and they voted Zach out. More because she kind of convinced everyone he's the threat in challenges. I just was, going looking for, innocently going looking for food, and you guys misinterpreted it, which they didn't. She looked for an idol. But yeah, Romeo, my opinion of him was that he just seems so sneaky. And he is the type of person that would not even hesitate to stab someone in the back, and he'd make eye contact with them the entire time the night he was pulling the knife out.
Yeah, he does come across a little serpent-like. Now, like he may be like a super nice guy in real life.
I'm not making any attacks on him personally. I'm saying his gameplay so far has really just seemed like he sits back and then just lets the chaos unfold around him, and then strikes at the last minute when no one's expecting it. But you can just tell he's waiting, because this whole time was him just going around trying to figure out who to vote out, and then he kind of caught on to Swati playing every angle, and then just
and look, that's her own fault.
It is her own fault.
I think Romeo was fully gung-ho to be like, let's just take out Rockswari. Like he seemed to be going at him early on.
Yeah.
But as soon as it came out that Swati made the "you're my number one" comment with multiple people, like that's a cardinal mistake in this game. And like if you can get away with it with one or two, obviously one person, it's fine, but two people, three is pushing it. Two people, I get.
Three is really pushing it.
But in a tribe of 5 people, if you've told, well, so you're the one, and then you have 4 other contestants. If you've told 50% of the remaining people on your tribe that they're your number one, that's gonna come to light.
And she didn't even do it. She told 3 of the 4.
Yeah, that's it. It's such a bummer too. I really saw her going deep.
I really liked her, and I thought she had a lot of potential too. But just looking at this episode, it's very easy to tell why they voted her out. Like you said before,
it makes sense.
The writing was on the wall for her once she made the mistake. And look, I think she had that type of strategy where she was just going to go in and kind of make friends with everyone, not ruffle any feathers at all. But she went too far with it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the timing when she went out kind of aligned to where JD went out in season 41. And I feel like in hindsight, they had very similar, undoings. Like their gameplay were different. She was a little more quiet and reserved. He was a little more outspoken.
Yeah.
But they both made similar mistakes in that they tried to make deals with everyone, and it caught up with them because people wanted to work with them, but they just didn't know if they could trust them. So it really is unfortunate, but
and that was the whole thing. It was everyone realized that she was kind of creating a form of paranoia in the camp because everyone was kind of being pit against each other, not through any fault of her own. I don't think that she had any intentions of, creating paranoia in the tribe. She was just trying to go and make allies with everyone and be everyone's, go-to person. And it just spiraled for her.
Yeah, and look, you talked about paranoia. I think we saw a lot of paranoia for most of the contestants this week. Taku they're on their own island. Like
Yeah.
they're living life happy. They're
Hang
winning
on. Let's
challenges.
reword this. They're not on their own island. Jonathan's on his own island.
Yeah, but like we saw clips of the Vati camp, and they were a disaster. Obviously, we saw the chaos and dysfunction at Ika this week. It just seems like a lot of these tribes are water and oil, kind of not really mixing so far. And I don't know if it's just the personalities they put together that it just works out well. That there's small tribes, and the people may work together in a larger setting, but in a smaller tribe, there's some friction there, which is good for television. It's certainly good to keep the game interesting. I do agree, though, that it's taken away from the strategy we thought we were going to get. I think we had really high hopes for this season, and certainly there's still so much left to be played out. And post-merge game could be awesome. Like, I'm pulling for that, right? And obviously the people that we both picked to win the whole season are still in, so like we're sitting good there. But it just seems like the gameplay and the strategy up to this point has been underwhelming.
Well, and the difference between this season and last season so far is that last season was the same type of thing where it was, 3 teams, 3 tribes of 6, and there was a lot of tension between the tribes. But pre-merge, we really only saw one tribe. And because of that, we saw 2 people in Shannon Ricard who were very strategic, and they had to be strategic in order to stay in the game because they had to maneuver the other people in their tribe. We aren't seeing that this time because one tribe is dominating, and it's basically between 2 other ones to switch off who's going to tribal.
And you can for sure see that in the editing of the season. Like, they're spending a lot more time on camp life because they obviously know how the first 7-8 group immunity challenges work out. We don't know that yet, but I think they're trying to bury the lead a little bit and let us see the interpersonal growth of the tribes and how they kind of develop as a group, which there is for sure a focus on more camp life this season, which I like, but it is kind of taken away from the fact that, like, hey, look, there's this one tribe that's dominating. This tribe sucks. We're just going to show them.
And this tribe also sucks.
Scrambling every week.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like with UA last season, 30 to 40 minutes of every episode was them scrambling, and then at tribal, and there was just, I was on the board, but they kept losing. Right? And certainly we've gotten a little more of a balance this season. Ika's lost 2 immunities. Everyone else has lost 1. Obviously Taku is down 2 members as well because of the Jackson elimination, but all in all, it's been a more balanced game, and maybe it is just asking for the rug to be pulled out, which I'm here for.
No, and I am too, but I think having it more balanced has almost upset the balance because you see just how mid-level everything can be, because
I think it's a good description.
This episode in general, it's arguably one of the most forgettable episodes I can remember, Like,
I agree. There's no like iconic quotes.
There's no
or specific moments. Yeah.
Like we had last week, we had Jonathan just absolutely destroying the challenge, and then everyone knew he was, the Goliath. And then there were 2 challenges this week, and he, destroyed them both. Taku won both.
And Tori even like called him Goliath, and they showed him back at camp, and he's like, "Oh, I hate that she did that," but. I was sitting at home watching that thinking, like, dude, your cover's already blown. Like, everyone knows you're a beast at this point. Like, what you did in the water, the challenge before, like, there's no avoiding that you're a physical dominant right here. Like,
if everyone else in the game right now doesn't realize that he's the number 1 physical threat, they're blind. And
it sucks too because I really like him, and he just has the most obvious post-merge first elimination like written all over him. Now,
maybe not first because maybe he can pull off a few individual immunities. But the second winning, he loses 1.
Look, if they keep winning and they make the merge at 11 and they're 4 of the 11, like that's. I know the other 7 could all, the other 2 tribes could team up together and take them out, but that's a good group, and like you may be on the right side of the numbers.
Yeah,
at least for a challenge or 2.
Now, here's a thing I wanted to bring up to you because I did not understand this when I watched it. And after the reward challenge, Jeff kind of asked Jonathan, like, why are you guys being so successful? You guys have been down 2 people for the last, couple of days. And Jonathan basically said, we're a very cohesive group. We're kind of like a little family, because they're a little family of misfits there. Omar and Marianne were both very, like, visibly angry about that. And they had confessionals afterward. They're like, Jonathan and his big mouth told everyone that we're a family. Like, I don't understand how that's a big deal.
Yeah, I caught that too. And I was thinking about this. I think part of it may be their long-term game plan and saying, like, I just want to get to the merge and I have no promises to anyone. They're working together, they're winning challenges, but I don't know if they're committed as a foursome long-term.
You don't know if they're committed to being the Final Four.
They're not working with each other, right?
They're working as a tribe. They're not working personally.
So I wonder if Omar and Marianne, hearing Jonathan say that, are thinking like, well, great, we're cast under the Lindsay, Omar, Jonathan, Marianne. We're a foursome. We're all together. And they don't want that attention, which I kind of get, because
I do kind of get that.
You want to go into, look, the people who win these seasons, these shows, and who at the very least make the final 5, final 6, people who make it very deep are usually floaters at the merge. You need to survive for 1 or 2 tribals when it's chaotic and 3 or 4 people against votes. And then you need to find yourself on the right side of the numbers, but on the outskirts where you can kind of go back and forth without actually obviously playing both sides, and people know, like, well, this person has no allegiance, let's just take them out, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like, Erica did a good job doing that. Jeremy Collins for sure, like, authored that gameplay and with the voting blocks, and that you can work with certain people. You have a good rapport with basically everyone, but you're not committed to anyone. And certainly no one's looking at you as the ringleader at all. That's a good strategy. So I wonder if they're thinking about that long term. Like, I want to make the merge, and then I want to let my gameplay take off from there. I don't want to go in with a solid group, because if that group falters, then it's a slippery slope to elimination.
You don't want to go in and kind of already be secluded to, all right, he's just one of Jonathan's minions over there. And yeah, that makes sense, because like you said, in this current age of Survivor, you win by not drawing attention to yourself, by sitting back, kind of being on the right side of the numbers and surviving. That's how Erica did it. That's how Tommy from Island of the Idols did it. That's how Jeremy Collins did it. Like you said, that's how a lot of people have done it. And there's the amount
Michelle
of people
Fitzgerald is a great example.
Exactly. There's so many people that have sat back and just kind of not coasted, but they've been a lot more comfortable, and that's how they've won. Then there have been stories of the people who were targets the entire game. Like,
it's very, very hard
to
be
Mike
the
Holloway,
number one player early on, and
Ben in that 35, drive. And that's kind of it. Like, for recent seasons.
Oh, you mean people who are direct threats?
Direct threats,
and they're trying to get them out the entire game.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's Ben and Mike, and they're the only 2 people.
Yeah, that's the only 2 I can think of.
Like Tony, his first time playing
nobody even considered him a threat.
Right, which is weird, and he kind of was saved by Trish that whole season anyway. Rob Mariano, when he won on Redemption Island, he was the ringleader.
He was the ringleader.
He wasn't being targeted. That's the difference.
It was obvious he was the ringleader, but he was never actually targeted,
right?
At least by a majority. And that's the problem. It's, if you're being targeted by the majority, you have to, and you're fighting for your life to win. There's a difference between that and being targeted by the majority, but you're being targeted by a minority,
Yeah, like, look, Russell Hantz is a great example of that. Every time he played, the third time he played, he got eliminated, like, second?
Yeah, because he was in the minority.
Right. But in the first 2 times, he was constantly going out and getting idols to save his bacon. And you usually don't win that way, because when you're burning bridges constantly, the idols eventually run dry, and you got to do something in your end game. So it's very tough. And I agree that the winner this season is probably going to follow a similar arc.
Yeah,
If we had
there's
to,
going to be a couple of front runners like there were last season with Shan and Ricard and someone like Danny who was, likable, kind of coasted, could have very easily won. It's not going to be someone who is very obviously a threat right now because there's still so much time left. Jonathan's not going to win this season.
I don't think so.
I would be blown out of the water.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first. If Jonathan wins, Alex is a fool for saying
I'm quitting everything if he wins. But it's like the big threats. I would take a very good shot and say Marianne's not going to win this one. Very likable person.
I can't see that now.
Very energetic. Everyone's gonna, everyone likes her, even if they do find her kind of annoying. Yeah. She's not going to win because of that. It's going to be someone.
Let's do this. Let's just we got the time here. There's not a ton to talk about this week, and I think we'll save our first power rankings
for next week.
So probably maybe 12. You think?
Well, we're at 13
final
now.
12.
So next week would be final.
Oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, you're right. I'm still thinking it's the fourth episode, so it's 14, but it's a double elimination of the premiere. Yeah, so next week we can do our first edition power rankings, which we did in 41 as well at the final 12.
Yeah,
I think that's a good spot for that list. But if you had to pick someone today, based on everything we've seen so far, to who is your favorite? Not who you want to win, but who you think is the favorite to win this season. And it doesn't by any means have to be anyone on your preseason draft. It doesn't have to be your individual pick of Lindsay.
I was going to say, the second you brought that up, I was going to say it's Lindsay. As of right now, think of it. She is on a tribe of people who are all just shields to her. She's likable. Everyone likes working with her. She's never been the target of any type of drama at all. She's kind of invisible. And look at Erica from last season. One thing that Survivor 41 faced a lot of backlash for was that Erica got zero screen time in the first half of the season. Lindsay's kind of in that exact same boat right now. She's gotten a few confessionals, nothing really overly personal.
Right. So not the purple Kelly edit, but where you get to the final 9 and you're like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's more.
I get what you're saying.
There's no lightning striking around her. There's no drama at all. She's just kind of going through. She's made relationships with people. It's not like she's just sat back and done nothing. She's made relationships with the 3 people on her tribe. And, as of right now, if I had to blindly pick someone who I think has the perfect combination of not the focus of the tribes, not, a overly physical threat, an overly non-physical threat, an overly social threat, it'd be her.
Yeah, I completely follow you on that prediction. I'm not going to pick her as well, just for the sake of some diversity here. But I will say with Lindsay, the one thing she's going to have to do if she makes the merge, which we believe she should at this point, unless something goes crazy, is that she may have to throw 1 or 2 immunity challenges early, because if you immediately establish yourself as a physical threat and then all of a sudden you're social, you don't really have any enemies, people wisen up real fast. If the numbers support it, they'll be like, oh, well, look, she's physical, we got to get her out. And if she can kind of thread that needle where hey, look, I am very physical, I don't have any enemies, but maybe don't, I'm just going to be first eliminated in the first individual immunity challenge, so you don't think about me, that's actually a good strategy.
Not a bad strategy.
We never really considered until I want to say last season.
Yeah.
Because I've watched almost every season in this show's entirety, right? And I never for a moment stopped to think oh, people are purposely throwing challenges even though they can win, just because me as a competitive person by nature, I'm not wired to ever think that I think I put myself on that beach too. And I said, if I was doing that, I would try and win every single time. And I know I'm not a dominant physical threat. I think I'm competent in a lot of things. So I would have to try really hard and could finish second, third a bunch. But you wonder if you finishing second or third is only because two or three other people who would have lasted longer than you or done better were kind of throwing. Right? And I never like it was like a glass shattering moment. And so like I wonder if Lindsay may have to do something similar. My pick, just like who I can see winning. I'm not gonna like put any money on it or stamp my name to it, but and this is going to be a kind of a hot take, Mike, because his game has been chaotic and reckless. And I feel like you look at him and you're like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's playing a bad game. And that may actually play to his favor in taking attention off him. And you forget that he still refuses to say his phrase.
Yeah.
Marianne said it twice in a row. He still is waiting for Ika to find it. We assume no one has found it. That's why they're not saying it either. And he's waiting for that to happen. And if no one claims the Beware advantage pre-merge, like you had alluded to last week, it becomes a full immunity at the merge. I'm still unsure on that. I know at the very least he'll get his vote back. But if what you implied last week is true, that he would also get a full-fledged immunity by doing nothing except for surviving, that becomes dangerous for him as well.
And that also means that other people on different tribes don't know about his idol. Or one of the big things from last season was we saw, because Shan had the idol, she knew that Xander and Nasir both had them because of when they were activated. If the idol's not, or if the sayings aren't said, Mike at the very least knows that Marianne has an idol right now.
And he knows the phrase she has to say, and she said it twice.
Yeah, exactly. And that type of information is very, very, powerful. Just because she's another big threat in the game.
Yeah, I really do wonder. At some point, people are gonna be like, "What the hell are you saying?" Like she forced it very hard this week. I think when she said it the first time, it's random, it's out of the blue. It's like, huh. She's a little crazy.
Yeah.
She's probably telling some weird story that's like specific to the school she went to or whatever. Like, I don't know, whatever. And then she said it again this week, and it's kind of like, I'm surprised they didn't give anyone a confessional where they're just sitting there thinking, what in the hell is she talking? Like, there's no way this isn't by accident, right?
See, the thing is, it's going to become the same type of Xander thing from last season where she said it's twice now. When she says it, if she says it again next week and it's a third time, people are going to know something's up. That's not a coincidence. Second time, especially with the way she played it off this week, I think she did a really good job of kind of incorporating that into her conversation with Jeff. She says it again.
Last week I said this, right?
Yeah. But if she says it again and doesn't kind of like, allude it to something else, that just her saying it last week, if she just tries to incorporate it into normal conversation again, that's a red flag waiting to be lit on fire right there.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to say going to be her downfall, but that is the weakest part of her game is that she doesn't have a ton of tact.
She has no self-awareness at all.
Yeah, I think she's very personable.
I do too.
She's very likable. She's a very gung-ho type personality.
She's a lot better. She's a lot stronger in challenges than I would say we gave her credit for too.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us saw her as a physical threat, but she can hold her own in challenges too.
But she lacks the finesse that it may take to, at the very least, pull off this Beware advantage. But I think as you get deeper in the game, unless she finds herself in like a rock solid alliance that tells her everything and she tells them everything, and they just happen to be able to work together and go deep, if she needs to make some moves, I worry that from what we've seen from her, that she has that ability to do so.
I also worry that she's going to kind of have the Swati problem of just kind of blowing everything, like just accidentally letting something slip. She gets so excited because all of a sudden she finds out, oh my God, Mike has an idol, say post-merge, and then all of a sudden she's talking to Daniel or something and lets it slip that she knows about Mike's idol. Daniel immediately goes, oh my God, Marianne knows about the idol. Get her out of here. Just for hypothetical, I can't actually see something like that happening.
Well, that's actually a good point. Daniel's read the pamphlet in its entirety, so he must know that she has the advantage. The
Same with
one that Mike has.
Chanel. Same with Chanel.
Well, does she know that he has the advantage? I don't know if she's read everything though.
I don't know if she's read everything, but she knows about the idol.
Right, but I don't know if she knows that Mike has to say a phrase, or if she does, I don't know if she knows what the other phrase that the other tribes have to say.
That's true.
So that is a good point, and this is where Daniel's early strategy of keeping Mike silent, not whether it's actually working on is a whole other thing up for debate, but his strategy of keeping Mike's mouth closed about this and not revealing what's going on is completely neutering Marianne.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, it's not really impacting Ika, but if someone on their tribe who they follow the Arc of 41, where all three tribes have found it, and they make sure that they don't show one tribe finding it until it's time to actually reveal and activate, Daniel's technically keeping them powerless as well, because Marianne's saying it, Mike isn't. So even if the other tribe has it and they're willing to say it, they may be doing the same thing he is and waiting for someone else to reveal the phrase. It's a good play, and I will say though, the lack of votes is starting to stack up. We talked about this last week, and you know what's bothering me is that maybe it's just bias, because the past few times it's been people who I want to stay in the game, but we haven't gotten a single shot in the dark success. I know the odds aren't great, but like,
you want the shot in the dark to actually add something, add a little bit of intrigue, and that kind of suspense is not going to even begin until one of them works. And so far, we've seen 3 in 4 episodes. And the only reason one of them wasn't played was because there was a tie. And there was the whole chaos of last episode, because Jenny had no idea she was on the chopping block. The other 3 people that have gotten voted out played their shot in the darks because they knew they were going home. And that kind of leads to another complaint I have about this season and last season in particular, is that, one thing on this show that we do is we don't exactly talk about just the show itself. We also talk about like the editing and producing and stuff. And one thing I really, really dislike that they've done with the last 2 seasons is they've kind of made it obvious who's going to be on the chopping block going into Tribal. This entire after the immunity challenge, this entire episode was based on who was going to be going home, Tori or Swati. There was never any talk of, well, but maybe we should try and get Romeo out. And, maybe that happened in the camp, but at least try and make it seem like there's some type of suspense. Because if you go into Tribal already knowing who's going to be on the chopping block, that takes away all the drama from it. Like last week, you knew it was going to be Lydia or Jenny, because those are the 2 people that were discussed the entire time. Week before that, you knew it was going to be Marianne or Mariah. Week before that, you knew it was going to be Tori or Zach.
And look, that's something that they've done almost in the entirety of the show, right? And it's in the whole series.
Yeah.
But there have been other instances, I agree, where it's
completely up in the air.
It could be like you are very on the fence whether it's person A or person B.
Yeah.
And either whoever goes home, you're like, well, they kind of alluded to that, but it wasn't confirmed. I was like dead positive that Swati was going home this week before Tribal even started.
One of the best things in this show is the shock aspect when a blindside happens that you were not even expecting.
Oh, that's the other thing too. Like part of these eliminations so far, they've been very straightforward.
Yeah.
And not that you need to pull off a blindside. If the entire tribe is in support of voting out one person, then go ahead. It's boring for us. It doesn't make for great television. I get it. But you're right in that when you don't have that blindside aspect, it takes away from the entertainment value of tribal council.
Yeah. And even like last season, I remember the biggest example of that is when Ricard was voted off. Ricard lost immunity. It was the final 5, and they were trying to make it seem like Xander would play his idol for him when you knew he wouldn't. And it was inevitable that Ricard would be going home. And in Tribal, instead of trying to make it seem like something would happen and maybe he'd survive, they almost made it a montage to Ricard. And the entire Tribal was him talking and just being like, I really appreciated my time on here and stuff like that. It was just very, I don't want to say odd, but it was very obvious who was going to be going home. And just that type of editing, I understand why they do it for some votes, especially episodes like this where it's just kind of whittling it down until the merge. But that doesn't take away the fact that there's no suspense. There was no suspense at all in this episode. You knew that Swati was going home the entire last half of the episode.
I will say, though, part of what drives that is how likable the cast is.
Yeah.
I'm torn in that I think I liked a lot of them more pre-show and through the premiere than I do now. Not that they've done anything to rub me the wrong way. It's
that they've done nothing.
I think I set the expectations too high, at least in the early going for them, and that they haven't really lived up to it yet. But part of what you mentioned 1 or 2 podcasts ago is that when you have 5 or 6 likable people in an entire season, the first 6, 7 eliminations, you don't even know who they are. You don't really care about them. Even if it is a boring elimination, you're like, well, great. It's not the person I wanted. It's fine. Let's just move on to the next week. Whereas now we like a lot of them. There's a good backstory behind almost all of the castaways. And when they kind of go out like a lamb, it's disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. And there wasn't even a fight in this episode. It was like Swati had her kind of swan song at the end, and then Jeff just goes, with that, it's time to vote. And you knew it was going to happen. So I think that wraps it up pretty well. This episode it didn't bring much to the table. It was just another elimination. We had our complaints, but I think overall we're ready for some more chaos, and hopefully that comes next week where we'll have our power rankings. We'll hopefully have a lot more to talk about than we did this episode. But you got anything else to say, or?
No, the show is bubbling under the surface. Like there's the entertainment that we're looking for is coming. I think we're both a little frustrated in that it hasn't happened quite yet, but I feel it on the horizon. So we gotta ride this ship out.
Mm-hmm. Just gotta be patient now.
Exactly.
But anyways, that'll do it. Thank you everyone for watching. Tune in next week for our episode 5 pod plus our power rankings, which we did pretty good with those last season, I think. So we'll see how accurate we are this one. But anyways, catch you in the next one.
Thanks everyone.